Here's how Unai Emery proved all his doubters wrong and made Aston Villa great. Now, Aston Villa are the talk of the town right now. They are one of the most informed teams in England. Many are comparing this Aston Villa team to the Leicester team that won the Premier League because they are the underdog team that's taken all the big teams' shine away. Now, majority of the praise, and rightly so, is going to Aston Villa's manager Unai Emery. And this video will look at his incredible rise back to the top after a few setbacks. Now, Emery first burst onto the scene when he managed Sevilla to 3 consecutive Europa League victories. Now let's think about that for a second. While Europa League isn't as prestigious as the Champions League, to win it 3 times in a row is a remarkable achievement. Clubs like Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United have all faltered to win the Europa League, and Emery has beaten all 3 of those clubs in a few of his Europa League victory campaigns. So Emery developed his reputation as a cup specialist, and through that he was given the PSG job, in which he'd done a good job, but he kept failing at Champions Leagues, and that means he left the club. He was then given the Arsenal job, and this is where it went wrong for him. This job really hurt his reputation. The Arsenal team were not in a good place. Previous manager Arsene Wenger did not build a good squad, and they were going through a hard transition, and unfortunately Emery had to deal with that. He was getting good results for Arsenal initially. He even led them to the Europa League final, but they lost to Chelsea and the players just stopped playing for him. They gave up on him, and Emery eventually got the sack. But in taking Arsenal to the Europa League final, Emery still showed that he's a European Cup specialist. After getting the sack from Arsenal, his reputation was in a bad place, especially amongst the English football fans. Then Emery took up the Villarreal job, but once again he showed his class. He beat his former team Arsenal in the semi-final of the Europa League. Then he faced a strong Man United team in the final. He miraculously beat Man United in the final and led Villarreal to their first ever trophy of any kind. Not just a first European trophy, their first ever trophy ever. And he done that with Villarreal. And then even the next season, he took Villarreal to the semi-final of the Champions League. Emery's work at Villarreal was truly remarkable for such a small club. So after that, Emery is then given the Aston Villa job. He takes over Aston Villa when they were 16th in the league, in a bad place after Steven Gerrard had done a terrible job with them. Villa knew they had to hire a proper manager with actual tactics, and Emery was the man, because Villa were already a strong team with good players. They had recruited really well. They just needed a competent manager, and Emery was that. And finally, Emery was given the resources he needs to make them compete, and that's exactly what he has done this season. Emery has turned Aston Villa into a machine. The players are incredibly fit, and they run and tackle with such intent. The players at Aston Villa have all said how incredibly detailed Emery is in everything they do. They are completely put through their paces at training. They work on every aspect of the game: fitness, tactics, motivation, data, and many more. Emery studies opponents meticulously, and he spends hours with his team understanding oppositions they'll be facing each week. He's noted for making his players watch hours and hours of videotapes of their opponents and themselves to study the strengths and weaknesses and what they could improve on. Now, this video is being written in the back of Aston Villa beating Man City and Arsenal back to back, the 2 best teams in England, all in the space of 4 days. And now everyone's all excited about what Emery's done with Aston Villa. Pep Guardiola even said he believes Aston Villa are actual title contenders. And while I don't think Villa have the resources to win the league, getting top 4 and Champions League football is still a remarkable achievement. Aston Villa beat Arsenal in a hard-fought game. They were lucky with some chances and they grinded out the win. But it's their victory a few days before over Man City that was one of the best performances we've seen from a team whole season. We've never seen the European champions Man City completely outplayed. And now those victories meant that Aston Villa have yet to lose a home game in over 10 months since February 2023. Emery has turned Villa Park into a fortress, something that hasn't been the case for over 30 years. Villa's defenders have vastly improved with the signings of Pau Torres, and him and Konsa have built a formidable partnership at the back, and they play positive football passing out from the back. Then you have the central midfielders in Douglas Costa and John McGinn, who run like crazy for the team, and they make crunching tackles and win the ball effectively. Then finally up front you have Ollie Watkins. Emery has turned Watkins into a goal machine. Watkins' finishing ability has improved a lot. Before, he was a streaky finisher and sometimes he would miss sitters, but now he's very consistent and he's become clinical with his finishing, and that's really down to Emery's individual management. Emery is known to work late nights at a Villa training ground, and he showed the players his dedication in improving them, and now the players work hard for him. They've improved their fitness and run like crazy for him. Even in the grueling training sessions, they all stay dedicated because they know Emery is dedicated to them. This was especially noted, their fitness levels, when the same 11 that beat Man City played 3 days later against Arsenal, and they won both the matches, and both times they had the intensity at the same level. So all in all, Emery is finally getting his redemption from his time at Arsenal and PSG. He's proven all his doubters wrong. At Aston Villa, Emery has more control over the club. He helps with the recruitment and he has very close relationships with the owners. Emery even pushed the former CEO at Aston Villa, Christian Purslow, out of the club, and Purslow was the one that hired Emery in the first place. But Emery knew he needed the men he can trust around him, and now the whole staff, sporting director, CEO, football technical director are all Emery's men, and they're all working together for the common goal. And we've seen with successful clubs, that's how you achieve success, a whole team working together. Now there still seems to be an attitude from rival fans that Emery wouldn't be able to handle big clubs like Man United or Arsenal, and those fans don't want Emery to manage their clubs. They think he's a small-time manager that can only do good with smaller clubs. But if Emery can make Aston Villa into a top 4 team, then he would have already proven his doubters wrong, and he doesn't even need to go to a bigger club because Villa is that big club. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the content.